host, Professor Hicks. Today I come to you with some sullen news about two deaths that occurred today. First, I like to say a spiritual birthday to my sister in law, Kathy. I won't mention her last name, but she knows who she is. And I would like to take a moment to say, Ashe. And hopefully your spirit and energy lives on forever, which I'm sure it will. Secondly, I'd like to say Ashe and a spiritual Ashe to both Jesse Jackson, who died today, and Miss Shirley Raines. Now, Jesse Jackson, most people know who they are, but Shirley Raines is a hero, an angel, who most people may not be aware of. She was a person working in Los Angeles to help homeless, and not just homeless people, anyone who was in need of help, particularly who were facing food insecurity. Food insecurity, and for years she worked in the Los Angeles area providing food and sustenance to people who could not do same, particularly during COVID. And what I understand 2 days ago, she passed away, and I wanted to shout her name out, Miss Shirley Raines. I also am still not hearing much about Kevin Porter Jr., who was killed and murdered by ICE agents in Minneapolis. None of the platforms are mentioning him at all. I watched the show on The View the other day to see if anything is coming of this, and those panelists on The View mentioned everyone's name but his. So we have to take up for him and say his name, Kevin Porter Jr. I understand his case has been picked up by Mr. Crump. He is the attorney, the black attorney that has been successfully taking our cases to court and winning. Hopefully he has the same success with this particular case. All right. So you see my title is America the First Apartheid State. Yes, we were. And why would you say that, Professor Hicks? Well, in 1948, South Africa, the Nationalist Party, which was, of course, a group of white racist militants, because they were very dangerous, who took control of a portion of South Africa, created a political party, and began to elect themselves into positions of power. During this time, they created, well, I should say, let me preface my comments by saying that already in South Africa, there were already racial segregation laws taking place and being implemented by this small group of settlers. We'll talk about that. But after they won the 1948 as a nationalist party, things got really, really, really bad for the South Africans. The election of the National Party, while segregation existed earlier, in 1948, the winning or the Nationalist Party that won allowed for the implementation of an even more rigid, legalized, very important, legalized system of racial segregation. This lasted, as most of you will remember, up until 1990. This is very, very similar to our American Revolution, which is a topic of discussion for the next couple of weeks or months, hopefully. Matter of fact, it's eerily similar to the American Revolution. Why do you say that? Well, after 1776, racial laws and codes became more rigid and became more implacable here in the new America. Like South Africa, many racial laws existed. We had slave laws and codes implemented throughout the country, but mostly in the South. But after the Revolutionary War, folks, these policies intensified, uh, and they intensified the existing laws that were already in place. These laws became more systematized throughout the country, especially in the South. The revolutionary language of liberty actually triggered, imagine this, actually triggered fears of black resistance, which led to more stricter laws. Why did this fear become so intensified? Though Africans at this time were coming out of the Revolutionary War in different perspectives. Some were patriots, some were loyalists. Because in South Carolina, particularly, where there was a larger African population than there was whites, there were so many slave rebellions that it induced a fear that became a part of white elites and white settlers, became a part of their DNA. I can probably prove that it was almost an example of epigenetics, I should say. Epigenetics. Because that fear we find today demonstrated and materialized in the voting patterns and trends of white America. Because there's one way to get white Americans to vote. It's for one party to say that black people are going to get a benefit from something that they are producing. Much like we have what's going on with Donald Trump today and his MAGA base, who voted in that way because they wanted to prevent us from having anything. And of course, the burgeoning and population of Hispanics, they wanted to prove and make sure that they were still in control. But like then, during the Revolutionary War, and as is now, white folks were fooled. Yes, they were fooled by the phonies, fakers, and fools, what we call the Founding Fathers. And many, you will find many on my next broadcast, we're going to talk more about the contradictions of the Patriot myth. And many of those people were treated much like we see white Americans being treated by ICE and the administration today. Many of them, like then, voted against their interests or at least participated in a war against their own interests. And sometimes because they were forced to. This is the African History Classroom. My name is Professor Hicks. Please like, subscribe, and join. And we will see you in the next broadcast.